Hey everyone. Imagine the pleasant surprise and shock on my face I had when I seen an article such as this. Now, of course, you can only expect that it would come out of a Post publication. So whether it's the National Post or the Financial Post, about the only place where you can get alternative narratives and counter opinions to the political orthodoxy of the day that is a representation of the leftist ideologues in this country. CBC, Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, the usual culprits, where the only time you'll see a counter narrative or a counter opinion is by an actual opinion piece submitted by some outsider. But no, in publications by the Post, the National Post or the Financial Post, no, you do get some pushback, which is why I'm very appreciative and why I'm even willing to financially support and pay for subscriptions to publications such as the Financial Post or the National Post. Hey, if you don't want the government to subsidize these folks, right, and if you don't want all media voices silenced or suppressed, well, you have to support them. Even people like myself, we all have to live, right? We all have to generate incomes to sustain our livelihood. That's just a recognition of reality. That's just what it is to live and function in a Western society. Is you have to have a paycheck. You have to have a source of income, right, to live. Well, actually, that's pretty much everywhere around the world. So that's just a reality. So yeah, support the people that are standing in opposition to, like I say, the leftist political orthodoxy and rhetoric being spewed by many of the leftists or those in the establishment media. And once again, it's Terence Cochran who's submitting this article for the Financial Post. And thanks to you, Terence. Thank you for being that pushback, for being a voice, for being an alternative voice out there, because I, for one, genuinely appreciate it, and I've got mad respect to you for doing so. Terence Cochran, forget firing the CBC's far-left ideologues. Just unfund it. Oh, that's music to my ears, right? That if the day ever comes, and I tell you, I hope for it. Matter of fact, I'm not a really religious man. Well, I am to a degree. That's my own personal thing, all right? So I won't get into the religious aspect of things, but anyways. But yeah, there's days where I would even pray for those in the CBC to have to actually function in a market equation in the real world, where they're actually held to account for the opinions, for the stance, for the propaganda and the rhetoric that they espouse, and see if they could stand on their own 2 feet. See who would actually support them financially and how well that would pan out. Here's the hoping. The corporation is the problem. An enterprise that collects $1 billion a year from the federal government to promote specific ideological objectives. Yeah, we're forced to subsidize people that spew rhetoric that is completely against what we stand for. Think about how immoral, just on that very basic point, just think how immoral it is to force someone to pay to be propagandized and have information rammed down their throat that they don't even agree or align with. In a series of tweets Sunday, Maxime Bernier, leader of the newly launched People's Party, said he had been a victim of an astonishing lack of professionalism. It occurred at the hands of 2 stars of the Canadian Broadcast Corporation's celestial team of personalities, Rosemary Barton and Wendy Mesley. Their performances were so abominable, said Bernier, that they should be fired or sanctioned. They should not. Bernier's aggravation is understandable given the attack he endured Sunday on the season premiere of the CBC's The Weekly with Wendy Mesley. During the episode, Mesley smiled as she lobbed ideologically loaded grenades at the libertarian/conservative Bernier, the main gist of which could be condensed to, are you or are you not a member of the vast right-wing international Ezra Levant Koch brothers Atlas Foundation billionaire conspiracy to impose libertarian racist Tea Party values on Canada? Come on, Mad Max, admit it. And yeah, I seen it, and he's completely right in that analysis. Wow, what a piece. What a hit piece. The whole thing can be viewed on the website for Mesley's new show. It was also nicely condensed by former National Post editor Ken White, who tweeted out a blow-by-blow summary. The National Post's Stuart Thompson also offered a terrific analysis of it. In style, Mesley comes across as a blend of Fox News' Sean Hannity and CNN's Don Lemon. Great analogy. Two masters of rabidly partisan broadcasting. But that's no reason to fire or sanction her. Nor is there a reason to fire or sanction Barton, one of the four hosts of CBC's The National. A few weeks ago, Barton suggested that Bernier had timed his criticisms of Canadian multiculturalism to coincide with the one-year anniversary of the race riots in Charlottesville, Virginia. Barton defended her implication by arguing Bernier was not available for an interview to confirm or deny whether her deliberate timing theory was correct. Like I say, folks, these people are so morally and intellectually corrupt that they literally do belong in the modern left or leftist political sphere, because they're not grounded by anything remotely objective or based on anything that's principled as far as ethics. It's just political rhetoric and ideologically driven propaganda as a means to an end, as a means to continually misinform and confuse the Canadian people. As intellectually warped as the Mesley-Barton smears on Bernier were, and warped is the right word, talk of firing and sanctions is misplaced. The problem certainly demands radical reform, but you can't fire journalists for doing the very job the CBC hired them to do, to front for a state-funded corporate news organization that has become, by design, a purveyor of leftism and social activism. And let me just mention, as if it's not already implied here, but yeah, Canadians are forced to pay for the CBC. So immorality already front and center. Reform must come at the top, and the only way that happens is by stopping the flow of government money that provides CBC executives with the power to shape the corporation's ideological agenda. There is just one solution. Unfund the CBC. Hey, hashtag defund the CBC, or hey, hashtag unfund the CBC. Either way, potato, potato. Yeah, get that stuff. Let's make that actually trending. Let's make that something that people actually care about, something that they can stand behind. Because you know out there that the Canadian people love to hear this kind of information and this kind of pushback against the Canadian Broadcast Corporation in Canada. You know, there are a lot of Canadians out there that are in full support of any political party that would even step up and say, yeah, we're going to defund the CBC and place it in the private sector and allow people, hey, if you want to support them, and you pony up and you pay for that yourself. You don't get to force me to pay for propaganda that I don't agree with or ideologically driven narratives that I completely detest and stand in complete moral, social, and economic opposition to. Now, you don't get to force me to pay for stuff that I hold extreme contempt for. It doesn't stop at Mesley and Barton after all. On public radio, it's Carol Off, Michael Enright, and Anna Maria Tremonti, and in Toronto, Matt Galloway, who are paid to be the audio advocates of CBC liberalism. I wouldn't even say liberalism. No, leftism, collectivism. Because if these people actually put forward and presented liberalism in terms of what liberalism even entails, well, no, you'd have a lot more varied voices out there, because that is kind of the pretense of liberalism, is to have a big tent of allowable voices. But what you're seeing out there is a very, very, very small tent of ideologues, and no one's allowed to step outside the bounds of their political orthodoxy or political opinions. Just last week, during an episode of The Current, Tremonti unleashed her own Mesley-esque attack on the editor of Harper's Magazine over his decision to publish a 7,000-word article by a man accused of Me Too misconduct. After Tremonti was criticized for her one-sided hounding, the CBC's producers made sure to book her as a guest on another CBC show, Day 6, to give her a national platform to justify her treatment of the Harper editor. But journalists are not the problem. The corporation is the problem. An enterprise that collects $1 billion a year from the federal government to promote a specific set of ideas, forcefully, once again, I'll add, no one voluntarily chooses to support the CBC, or maybe some do, but many others don't. So, forced. From the top down, the CBC has become a government-funded organization that has specific ideological objectives that are on display daily. So yeah, the propagandist arm of the Canadian government, which no matter whether they're left or right, so the Conservatives or the Liberals or the NDP, they're all collectivists, they're all quasi-socialists. It just depends on which particular segments of the economy or social policy that they particularly prefer or cater or coddle to, but they're all three main parties in Canada are socialist parties, okay? That's just a reality. Some are more fascist, some are more communist, but they're all collectivists at the end of the day. And CBC is the propagandist arm of the most dominant socialist party in Canada, which is the Liberal Party of Canada. Like I say, they do all their damage control, they do all the opinion making and opinion forming, PR stunts, and full-on propaganda to sustain support for that particular political party or any party that at least somewhat aligns with that political orthodoxy, with that particular ideology. Yeah, no, in Canada, no, yeah, we got to go to a model like some of the places in the US, like PBS and stuff. Hey, you want support? Get the public to support you. Those who actually agree with your opinions and your rhetoric, those are the people that need to be supporting you. Not people who are completely opposed to your political leanings or your ideology or your rhetoric. People such as myself. Stop trying to force me, or stop literally forcing me to subsidize the very people that I stand in complete opposition to. And not just in regards to politics, but in regards to philosophy, in regards to the pursuit of truth, in regards to what it even means to be educated and knowledgeable on a particular subject. The people in the CBC aren't educating anyone. All they do is indoctrinate. And you know the difference? Educating people gives them a plethora of opinions and narratives and allows them to come up with their own conception and understanding of what those opinions entail and what their own opinion should derive or result as a consequence of listening to many opinions. When you hear CBC, and you're hearing it all the time, it's just one-sided, left-leaning, ideologically driven narratives and opinions without any pushback or countervailing voices or narratives from anyone else. That's how you know it's propaganda, folks. That's, like I say, propaganda 101, not allowed to give any outsider opinions or counter opinions. I mean, that's pretty simple. And that's a reality, and that is what CBC represents. Great job, Terrence. Like I say, appreciate all that you do and many others out there that are doing their best to push back against these ideologues on the left. Thank you for doing so. I support you and anyone else that's willing to step up the plate. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.